Good morning, delegates. We are still waiting for some states to come in, and also the officials from ICAOs. So once they are in, once we have enough states in the assembly hall, we will start in about 5 minutes time. Thank you. Good morning again, delegates. I hope you have a good rest yesterday after the frenzy of yesterday's election. Again, congratulations to all the states that have been elected into the council. And today we will continue with our meeting. And today is the plenary. The order of business is reports by committees and commissions of the Assembly. I now wish to invite the Chair of the Administrative Commission, Mr. Jorge Castillo, to present the report of the Administrative Commission. Mr. Castillo, please. Technician, can you put a speaker for Cuba?
It's okay now? Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable President of the Assembly, President of the Council, Madam Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have pleasure in submitting for your consideration the report of the Administrative Commission as contained in the A39 Working Paper 506P/40. May I take this opportunity to point out to the plenary that the Administrative Commission considered all agenda items in a single session and also reviewed the draft report in one meeting, therefore allowing the total work program to be completed in 2 meetings. Likewise, the Administrative Commission is presenting a single report on its proceedings. Clearly, this is a reflection of a great preparatory work which took place between the Council and the Secretariat prior to the Assembly. I would also like to place on record my appreciation for the cooperation extended to me by the Secretariat and by all delegates in conducting our business in an efficient and effective manner. I will now present, therefore, for the general section of the report, as well as the reports on the agenda items and the draft resolution to be adopted by the plenary, if so required. Regarding the general section of the Administrative Commission report, the Commission recommends to the plenary that the general introductory section entitled Report of the Administrative Commission to the Assembly be approved. In the agenda item 48, Annual Report to the Council to the Assembly for 2013, 2014, and 2015, the Commission recommends to the plenary that the section of the annual report entitled Financial Overview be approved. On agenda item 50, confirmation of Council action in assessing the contribution to the General Fund and determining advance to the Working Capital Fund of states which have adhered to the Convention. The Commission noted that subsequent to the 38th session of the Assembly, no new states adhered to the Convention and became a member state, and therefore no action is required on this item. In regard to the agenda item 51, contributions in areas, the Administrative Commission considered Working Paper 61, revision number 1, regarding the financial aspects of areas, including states with voting rights deemed suspended, and Working Paper 68, relating to the application of funds from the incentive scheme for settlement of areas. Accordingly, we should note that the plenary has already adopted Resolution 10/1. On agenda item 52, assessment to the General Fund for 2017, 2018, and 2019, the Administrative Commission informs the plenary that no change in the methodology of assessment is being proposed and that the assessment principles for the current triennium will be maintained in the next triennium. The Administrative Commission recommends that the plenary adopt Resolution 52/1. In regard to the agenda item 53, report on the Working Capital Fund, the Commission informs the plenary that the level of the Working Capital Fund has been maintained at US $8 million and recommends for adoption Resolution 53/1 entitled Working Capital Fund. On agenda item 54, disposition of cash surplus and deficit, the Administrative Commission noted the financial results and confirmed that there is no need for member states to finance the deficit at this time. The plenary is invited to note this report. In agenda item 55, amendment of the financial regulations. After reviewing the proposed change to the financial regulation 5.9, 7.3, and 11.4, the Commission, and reflected the comments received in the Commission's reports, the Administrative Commission recommends the adoption by the Assembly of the draft resolution 55/1. Regarding to the agenda item 56, review of expenditures, approval of accounts, and examination of audit reports for the financial years 2013, 2014, and 2015, the Commission notes with satisfaction that the auditors have issued a clean audit opinion in each year of the 3 years. As expressed during the Administrative Commission meetings, sincere thanks is expressed to the Cour des Comptes of France, who served ICAO for their financial audit year in 2013. Accordingly, the consolidated draft resolution 56/1 is recommended for adoption by the Assembly. On agenda item 57, appointment of external auditor, the Commission recommends that the Assembly confirm the reappointment of Mr. Raffaele Schittieri, President of the Corte dei Conti of Italy, as ICAO's external auditor for the accounts of financial years 2017, 2018, and 2019. Accordingly, the Administrative Commission recommends for adoption by the plenary the draft resolution 57/1. Finally, in agenda item 49, budget for 2017, 2018, and 2019, the Administrative Commission supports the draft budget and recommends that the Assembly adopt draft resolution 49/1 relating to the indicative budget estimates of the administrative and operational service costs of the Technical Cooperation Program and the budget for the regular program of the organization for the triennium 2017, 2018, and 2019. Honorable President of the Assembly, President of the Council, Madam Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the agenda items considered by the Administrative Commission. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the delegates of the Administrative Commission, the 2 Vice Presidents of the Commission, and also thank the Secretariat for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jorge Costello, the Chair of the Administrative Commission, that just presented the report on the Administrative Commission. United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Very simply, the United Kingdom supports adoption of the report and congratulates the Chair of the Commission and the Secretariat working for the Commission on the efficient conduct of its work. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I do not see any more intervention. Therefore, the Chairman of the Assembly will now officially adopt the resolution on the as presented by the Administrative Commission. Okay. Thank you. On the approval of the report from the Legal Commission, I now wish to invite the Chair of the Legal Commission, Mr. Alessio Curanta, to present the report of the Legal Commission. Mr. Coranta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. Relevant working paper is 506 with reference to item 44, 45, 46, and 47. The Legal Commission held 3 meetings between 28th of September and 3 of October 2016. At its 5th meeting, the Commission elected Mr. Abdulrahman Hassan Sheikh from Saudi Arabia and Mr. Chukwuma Dubem from Nigeria as its 5th and 2nd vice chairperson, respectively. It completed consideration under agenda item 44 of the annual reports of the Council to the Assembly for 2013, 2014, and 2015, as well as the supplement for the first half of 2016. Under agenda item 45, the Commission reviewed the work program of the organization in the legal field and proposed 3 Assembly resolutions for the plenary. The 5th resolution relates to the work undertaken on the consideration of conflict of interest, which, in particular, highlights that conflicts of interest may hamper effective, independent, and impartial regulation of civil aviation, and thereby pose risks to the safety and security of international civil aviation. The Commission recommended that an Assembly resolution be adopted to promote awareness of potential conflict of interest in civil aviation, as well as the need to take measures to avoid or mitigate risks from conflict of interest while taking into account the level of development and resources available for regulatory and oversight functions. The second resolution recommended by the Commission is to urge all states that have not yet done so to ratify the Montreal Convention of 1999. The Convention, which has been widely accepted, relates to the liability of air carriers. The third resolution recommended by the Commission is to urge all ICAO member states to sign and ratify the Beijing Convention and the Beijing Protocol of 2010. These 2 new aviation security treaties still need a few more ratifications to bring them into force. The Commission agreed to include a new item entitled Implementation of Article 21 of the Chicago Convention in the General Work Program in the Legal Committee. Under Agenda Item 46, Consolidated Statement of Continuing ICAO Policy in the Legal Field, the Commission updated Resolution A37-22 to reflect the adoption of the Montreal Protocol of 2014, as well as the amendments to increase the size of the Council and of the Air Navigation Commission. The Commission also completed its consideration of Agenda Item 47. It concluded that the working papers related to remotely piloted aircraft systems could enrich the discussion of the Legal Committee. In conclusion, Mr. President, let me warmly thank the Secretariat for supporting and assisting me in this task. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alessio Coranta. The Chair of the Legal Commission just presented the report on the Legal Commission. I do not see any intervention on this. Therefore, the Chairman of the President of the Assembly now adopts the resolution as reported by the Chair of the Legal Commission. I now wish to invite the Chair of the Economic Commission, Mr. Geoffrey Poseleso Mushabesha, to represent the reports on the Economic Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President. President of the ICAO Council, Madam Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present to the plenary the the reports of the Economic Commission as contained in papers, working papers 517, 518, 519, 520, 521, and 522. The Economic Commission held 3 meetings to complete its work under agenda's items 38 to 43. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude for the support provided by the Secretariat in the work of the Economic Commission. I also wish to thank the Commission for the cooperation and support accorded to me during the meeting sessions. With regard to the first paper, working paper 517, which covers the general section of the report, as well as the report on item 38, which is annual reports of the Council to the Assembly for 2013, 2014, and 2015, and supplementary report of the first 6 months of 2016. In WP 518, related to agenda item 39, economic regulation of international air transport policy, the Commission reported its deliberation on, inter alia, the implementation of recommendations of the 6th Worldwide Air Transport Conference, including long-term vision for liberalization, core principles on consumer protection, progress on the development of international agreements on the liberalization of market access, air cargo, and air carrier ownership and control, as well as slot allocation. The Commission endorsed the proposed program of work as outlined by the ICAO Council. Working paper 519 reported the Commission's deliberation on agenda item 40, economics of airports and air navigation services policy. The Commission endorsed the organization's plan of work in this field during the next triennium, which will assist states in addressing infrastructure financing, facilitate private and public financing, and access to funding for long-term needs, and advance the No Country Left Behind initiative. With respect to agenda item 41, aviation data, monitoring and analysis, the Commission reviewed work related to the re-engineering of the ICAO statistics program, the development of a single set of harmonized long-term forecasts as requested by the 38th session of the Assembly, and aviation data and analysis activities undertaken jointly with the United Nations, its agencies, and other international and regional organizations and academia to address programmatic issues of mutual interest. As summarized in WP 520, the Commission endorsed the plan of work in the field of aviation data, including statistics, forecasting, and economic analysis in the upcoming triennium. Regarding agenda item 42, economic development of air transport, the Commission noted ICAO's future work on the development of the global air transport plan. It also reviewed the consolidated statement of continuing policies in the air transport field. Several amendments were recommended, following which the Commission approved its submission to the plenary for adoption. The complete text of the resolution is contained in working paper 521. Finally, the Commission's report on agenda item 43, presented in working paper 522, reflects the discussions of other issues considered by the Economic Commission. Mr. President, On behalf of the Economic Commission, I submit these reports for approval by the plenary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosha Besha, for the report on the Economic Commission. I do not see any intervention. Therefore, as the President of the Assembly, the plenary approve the report of the Economic Commission. Thank you. Dear delegates, in my capacity of the Chairman of the Executive Committee, I wish to present the Assembly the reports of the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee met and addressed the agenda item 14 on the Technical Assistance Program, and also agenda 15, the technical cooperation policies and activities on technical cooperation. Agenda 16, aviation security policies. Agenda 17, Universal Security Audit Program, continuous monitoring approach. Agenda item 18, implementation support and development of security. Agenda item 19, facilitation and the ICAO Traveler Identification Program, ICAO Trip Strategy. Agenda item 23, the ICAO Civil Aviation Training Policy and Capacity Building in Aviation. Agenda item 24 and 25, Human Resource Management. Agenda item 26, multilingualism at ICAO. And agenda item 27, increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of ICAO. Agenda item 28, the No Country Left Behind initiative. Agenda item 29 and 30, United Nations 2030 Agenda, Sustainable Development Goals. And last not least, agenda item 31, other high-level policy issues to be considered by the Executive Committee. I have to point out that the report on agenda item 15 is not available yet at this stage, and also agenda item 28. All the reports and the deliberations are in the working papers as been presented to all delegates, except for working paper 500 on agenda item 15, and also working paper 501 on agenda item 28. I now present all the reports to the Assembly for approval, to the plenary for approval. Thank you. United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think we can agree to adoption of the reports that are presented here, but can I just ask for clarification how you intend to proceed with those two chapters of the report that are not present here? Are we going to need to take these in a later session of the plenary, please? I would just be grateful for clarification on that point. Thank you.
I know, as presented, the plenary, we like the plenary to approve all the reports except agenda item 15 for working paper 500 and agenda item 28 for 501, which will be done either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Thank you, United Kingdom. We know other intervention. The President of the Assembly will now approve all the agenda items as reported by the Executive Committee, by the plenary, except for agenda item 15 and agenda item 28. I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. Dear delegates, the schedule of the meeting for today is only the sixth plenary meeting, which is now, and the next meeting, on the 10th meeting of the Executive Committee, will be held at 1500 hours, 3 p.m. today at this Assembly Hall. Therefore, I adjourn this meeting. I missed the technical report. Must be too early in the morning. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. The technical report is now to be presented by Mr. Graham Harris, the chair of the Technical Commission.
Mr. President of the Assembly, firstly let me assure you that I'm not offended by the oversight of the Technical Commission, and apart from that slight slip-up, allow me to begin by congratulating you on your excellent handling of the Assembly. I'd also take the opportunity to congratulate the President of the Council for the work of the Council in their preparation of documentation and for the budget that they've put forward. I've come to understand that there are many competing needs for the resources of ICAO, and prioritising activities is no easy task. I'd also like to thank the Secretary-General and her staff for their outstanding support and the organisation of the Assembly. It's amazing how much work goes on behind the scenes, and you and your staff have done an amazing job. As the Chair of the Technical Commission, I'm presenting the reports on agenda items 32 to 37. The first and second Vice Chairs and myself worked as a team on a very heavy work programme. Finally, I'd like to thank all of the participants in the Technical Commission who worked in a spirit of cooperation and friendship, which allowed us to complete our considerable workload. The Technical Commission held 6 meetings between 26 September and 4 October 2016. Representatives from some 180 contracting states and 50 observer organisations attended one or more of the Commission meetings. The Commission addressed 201 working papers plus 7 draft reports. Under Agenda Item 32, the Technical Commission reviewed the annual reports of the Council, noting the work accomplished in the safety and air navigation fields during the past 3 years. Under Agenda Item 33, the Commission noted the current status of the objectives, priorities and enablers of the 2014-16 edition of the Global Aviation Safety Plan, the priorities of the Global Air Navigation Plan, and the status and results of the Universal Safety Oversight Audit Program Continuous Monitoring Approach. The Commission encouraged states to take action on achieving objectives of the GASP and aligning with the priorities of the GAMP, and to support the regional aviation safety groups and the planning and implementation regional groups in implementing regional priorities. The Commission also encouraged states to provide data on their progress and the status of implementation, and urged them to provide timely reports of their progress in implementing USOAP corrective action plans and performing self-assessments on the online framework. The Commission reviewed progress made on the outcomes of the second high-level safety conference and provided updates regarding some additional emerging issues. The Commission recognised the benefit of holding divisional type meetings as a formal means to recommend inputs for additional technical work to be undertaken by ICAO, so that the meeting outcomes could be considered in the context of all other demands as part of the budget approval for the next triennium. The Commission agreed that Council should consider instituting this practice. The Commission noted the progress to date on aircraft tracking and agreed that ICAO should promote the development of efficient SAR capabilities in the AFI region, and supported initiatives already underway to achieve this. States were also encouraged to support ICAO's position on the GADS at the next International Telecommunication Union meeting. The Commission deliberated at length on remotely piloted aircraft systems and small unmanned aircraft systems, and noted much progress on these issues from around the world. The Commission also noted wide support for the ICAO work on RPAS, and agreed that development of a global baseline of provisions and guidance material for the proper harmonisation of regulations on UAS that remain outside the International Instrument Flight Rules framework was justified. In order to facilitate this expansion of ICAO's work programme, an innovative and flexible approach would be adopted, taking into account ongoing developments at national, regional and international levels. The Commission reviewed proposals to complete the work programme recommended by the Task Force on Risks to Civil Aviation arising from conflict zones, to complement the existing work programme on conflict zones through a review of all relevant annex provisions, and upon completion of the work programme on conflict zones, called upon the Council to reconsider the inclusion of Council zones in the work programme of the Legal Committee. The Commission agreed the Council should afford priority to the action items in light of the 2017-19 budget and the availability of extra budgetary resources. Furthermore, the Commission highlighted the importance of information sharing and the need for Member States to engage in these efforts. The Commission noted the developments and progress in safety management, both from ICAO and in many states, and commented favourably on progress. The Commission noted that the Secretariat would continue to make enhancements to the OLF, and that this proposed functionality would be considered and prioritised amongst all other design improvements that were planned. The Commission agreed that ICAO should continue to inform states about the benefit of using the PQ self-assessment as part of the SSP, and promoted the value of the information contained in the PQ self-assessment. The Commission agreed to recommend that ICAO consider amending the minimum number of flight hours experience for flight operations inspectors. The Commission agreed that ICAO should, using available resources, perform a structured review to identify adjustments to the USOAP CMA with a view to the further evolution and strengthening of the programme, taking into consideration the evolving safety strategy of ICAO and states' progress in implementing Annex 19, in particular SSP requirements. The Commission also agreed that to ensure sufficient independence and to avoid a possible transition to a permanent oversight function, the review should be conducted by a temporary group composed of selected experts, including from member states and the Secretariat, under the guidance of the Air Navigation Commission, with results reported to the ICAO Council. Such a review should be completed in a timely manner in order to be considered for the next triennium budget. With respect to harmonisation issues, the Commission reviewed the need to reduce the regulatory and oversight burden regarding the approval of maintenance organisations and approved training organisations. The Commission noted and supported the ongoing work by ICAO to facilitate a globally harmonised approach for the approval and recognition or reciprocal acceptance of AMOs, and further recommended that states be urged to harmonise their regulations related to AMOs and ATOs. The Commission also recognised the benefits of using the Maintenance Organisation Review Certificate Scheme. On other issues, the Commission noted a case study of the implementation of performance-based navigation specifications and recommended that ICAO be requested to continue work on the development of visual guided approaches, which could be used to facilitate airport access. The Commission reviewed a progress report on the attainment of the safety and air navigation goals for 2016 set in the Declaration of Bogota. Mindful of the needs of the Latin American states, the Commission recommended that the Council consider the development of a system for the validation of data and classification of accidents and incidents on a state or regional basis. Mr. President, that concludes my introductions of the report on Agenda Item 33. And as you can see, the deliberations of the Technical Commission were wide-ranging and thorough. I think at this point, rather than going into each agenda item report in detail, we could take the reports as tabled unless you receive any questions from the floor, which I will be most happy to answer. With that suggestion to you, Mr. President, I'll conclude my remarks and hand the discussion back to you for consideration of the reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham Harris, the Chair of the Technical Commissions, on the reports on the Technical Commissions. I do not see any intervention on the technical report. The Technical Commission, as reported by the Chair of the Technical Commission. Therefore, as a President of the Assembly, the plenary approved the report as reported by the Chairman of the Technical Commission. And now on the approval on the final report of the Credentials Committee. I now wish to invite the Chair of the Credentials Committee, Mr. Sulaiman Eid, to present the report on the Credentials Committee. Mr. Sulaiman Eid, please.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. سيد الرئيس بصفتي.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my capacity as Chair of the Credentials Committee, I have the honor to submit this report to the Assembly for its approval. At the first meeting of its plenary held on 27 September 2016, the Assembly agreed to the establishment of the Credentials Committee, and the delegations of Bahamas, Bangladesh, Congo, Lebanon, and Luxembourg were invited to nominate members for this committee. On 27 September 2016, the first meeting of the Credentials Committee was held, and the committee was composed as follows. Mrs. Julia Brathwaite Roll from the Bahamas, Mr. Lutful Kabir from Bangladesh, Mr. Romeo Boris Makayabachi from Congo. I also was part of this committee along with Ms. Linda Mazzola from Luxembourg. The committee unanimously elected me. elected me, member of the delegation of London, to the chair of the committee. Then at the second meeting of the plenary, the chairperson of the Credentials Committee presented interim report to the Assembly and informed that as of 1500 hours on 27 September 2016, 164 member states and 39 observer delegations had registered for the Assembly. Credentials in due and proper form had been received from 170 member states and 43 observers. The Assembly agreed on the recommendation of the Credentials Committee to urge all states and organizations that had not yet presented due and proper credentials to do so as soon as possible. And meanwhile, in view of Rule 7 of the Standing Rules of Procedure of the Assembly, to permit them to participate in its deliberations. At its fifth meeting on 4 October 2016, the Credentials Committee found that the credentials submitted by 184 member states and 57 observers had been presented in due and proper form. Mr. President, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues, members of the committee, thank them for their spirit of cooperation which prevailed at the time of the meeting of our committees. I also would like to thank the Secretariat staff who were first-class team workers, since they worked hard to gather all the documents presented by participating states, and they made sure that these were presented in due and proper form. They, in fact, adjusted the credentials which needed to be amended, and they worked tirelessly up to the very last minute. I would like to thank this Honorable Assembly as well for the trust it placed in the Credentials Committee, and we would like to draw your attention to the significant number of participating states at this Assembly. This is clearly indicative of the leadership role played by ICAO, as well as the faith we place in ICAO. Thank you.
Shukran. Thank you, Mr. Sulaiman Eid, the chair of the Credentials Committee that just presented a report on the Credentials Committee. Thank you. There's no intervention, therefore, as a President of the Assembly, the plenary now approve the report of the Credential Committee as reported by the chair of the Credential Committee. Again, I would like to apologize for the slip-ups of the order of business this morning. And I'd like to now, again, would like to remind all delegates that that's all the reports that to be presented this morning in the 6th plenary meeting. And the next meeting will be the 10th meeting of the Executive Committee that will be held at 3 o'clock in the afternoon today. So I adjourn the meeting this morning, and we will see again at 3 o'clock today. Thank you.